Hello, I've got exciting news from BinTwo. We've got our kegs on. Not these kegs for the northerners among you, or even these kegs. No, I'm talking about wine in keg. What's wine in keg? So, wine, as the name implies, is wine that's been packaged not in glass bottles, but into a keg instead. And why would we do that, you might ask? Perfectly reasonable question, and the logical place to start would be the environmental benefits, but that's not where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the benefits for the wine, because frankly, there's no point in me pitching you the idea of something that's environmentally friendly if the wine doesn't stack up. And it's certainly where we started. The technology's been around for a while, and a few people have been experimenting with wine in keg for a while, but we didn't want to introduce it until we were absolutely confident about the quality of the wine that was in the keg. And in that respect, we found a great importer who's really got behind the format. It's not something they do on the side a little bit because they feel like they ought to tick an environmental box. They've really got behind the format. They've forged some really strong relationships with really good quality winemakers, and so as a consequence they got really good quality wine in the keg, which is great news, because kegs are actually a really great way of preserving wine. And the reason for that is, I should say up front, this isn't the solution for all wines. A wine that you want to stick on the rack and age, a truly kind of fine wine, that belongs in bottle and it belongs with a cork in it, no argument whatsoever. But the fact is nowadays that most wine is drunk within a year, 2 years of it being made. The vast majority of wine is consumed in that way, and it's released from the winery in a condition that's fresh and ready to drink. So for those kind of wines, wine in keg is a great solution. Because what a keg is, it's a plastic outer keg and it's got an aluminium bag inside, and the wine is pumped at the winery straight into that aluminium bag. And then when the wine is dispensed, what happens is that some carbon dioxide gas gets injected into the keg around the bag, and it applies pressure to the bag, and then that forces the wine gently up through a pipe out to the dispensing tap. And if it's a white wine or a rosé wine, it gets routed through a chiller first off, so the wine is being chilled immediately as it's required to the dispensing tap. And the great thing about that system is that air doesn't get anywhere near the wine at any point. It's perfectly preserved in this aluminium bag, and unlike some other methods of dispensing, there's nothing getting anywhere near the wine. It's just perfectly preserved, gently squeezed out of the bag, so it stays as fresh as a daisy for a really, really long time. The wine doesn't deteriorate in the same way that it can do with other kind of solutions like bag in bots. So it's brilliant. And I guess, so that's the first innovation. The technology is genuinely really good, great for saving and preserving wine and making sure that the last glass out of that keg will be as fresh as the first glass that came out of the keg. I guess the other element really is then convincing winemakers to put decent quality wine into the keg. It's a bit of an unfamiliar format for a lot of people, and you can understand why winemakers would be a little bit cautious about it, can't you? So you can understand why they might be tempted to put their kind of lower quality wines in, their entry level wines, and not risk their better quality wines on it. And that's where again I refer back to the importer we've been working with, who has convinced winemakers to put decent wine in. And I think the moment where I was convinced about the format was actually just pre-pandemic. One of the very last wine tastings I went to before the world turned on its head was going up to taste wine in keg with Uncharted Wines, Rupert Taylor. Hi Rupert. And I tasted a Meursault there, really high-end Burgundy, Premier Cru I think it was, that had been put into keg, and Rupert had convinced a sceptical winemaker to put it in keg as an experiment. And that's the wine that I tasted that was just the game changer, because for me it was kind of like, if we can get this kind of quality wine in keg, then that just changes the whole picture, and we can really challenge some people's perceptions about these alternative formats. And then the world imploded, didn't it? So I did nothing about it. But now we have. So wine is on keg at BinTwo for service by the glass, and we've also got it at the Ark on a refill system where you can buy wine in a bottle, take it away, and then come back and get that bottle refilled. And I caught up with Rupert just before getting the system fitted, And he said that actually that Premier Cru Merceau, he still had a couple of litres left in the keg a couple of years later, because his world had turned upside down with the pandemic as well. And he took it back to the winemaker to taste. And the winemaker was, his reaction was apparently along the lines of, "Oh my God, that's incredible. That's as fresh as the day that it left the winery. That's how I want my wine to be drunk." And he was converted to the cause. So wine in keg is good for the wine, and we wouldn't have introduced it if it wasn't. The environmental benefits are pretty significant, really. So in each 20-litre keg of wine, you've got the equivalent of 27 glass bottles, and that equates to about 4.5 cardboard cases. So right away there, you can see that you've saved 27 bottles. The weight of 27 bottles is probably going to be, depending on the bottle, going to be up to about 20 kilos of glass waste. You've obviously got the cardboard waste, you've got the corks or the screw caps or whatever stopper that's saved, you've got the labels that are saved, and you've got the kind of foil that goes around the neck of the bottle, that's all saved. So it's a huge material saving in exchange for a key keg, which I think, off the top of my head, don't quote me on it, it weighs about 1.1 kilos. It's completely recyclable, and it can go back into a closed loop recycling system where kegs are reconditioned, refurbished, recycled. They become kegs again, basically. So there are undeniable benefits to the environment. I mean, glass is great, and like I say, for fine wines that you want to age, they're always going to be part of the solution, I think. And I get the appeal, the aesthetic appeal of having a bottle and opening it. So I'm not saying that bottles have had their day. But, glass is a lovely product. I think it's perceived by people as being natural. It takes an awful lot of manipulation to produce glass in the first place, and recycling glass even. And we've got really good recycling rates in this country, but you have to heat it to 1,000 degrees to recycle glass. It's hugely energy intensive. So I think anything we can do to minimise the use of it, where there's a suitable alternative that also gives you assurance about quality, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer. And it translates also into transportation of the goods. So that one 20-litre keg takes up much less space when it's being transported than those 4.5 cardboard cases of wine. So everything through from the road journey in the country in which it's produced, through to the ferry that it's then shipped on a pallet, to the road journey that it then goes under in the UK to be delivered to a distributor, and then the final journey to sales outlets and bars like mine. All of that accrues. It takes up more physical space in the transportation vehicle than a keg does. So again, you got knock-on sort of transportation savings there with the you can get more kegs into the same amount of space. Makes sense? Probably laboured the point, but I guess a point I'm hammering home is it's new for us, a bit of a departure, but I'm really excited by it. And the wines are tasting great. We've got some really interesting wines that we've launched, but for peace of mind and reassurance, we've also got something on keg which I think people are going to be familiar with. It's a really cracking South African Chenin Blanc. It's a really well-known brand that you can find in bottle, the Secateurs Chenin Blanc. It's great value in bottle, and it's tasting equally good in keg. So if you just want to calibrate and test your skeptical mind, that is the wine to start with, and then we can move you on to the other exciting bits and bobs that we're going to be introducing by keg over the course of the coming year. So that's it. That's our little intro. It's the latest in our step to try and do a little bit more with alternative formats that are doing a little bit for the environment, trying to reduce our impact as a business on this little planet of ours, and along the way delivering you some awesome quality wine. Come and give it a go. Oh yeah, no, it's all good. I think the film's gone really well. Thanks for the loan, darling. The lace is really comfy, but how do you stop them riding up?